Hey guys, it's Amanda and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video we are going to be talking all about hair and specifically how I go about coloring hair. So I'm going to be showing you a few different techniques about how I layer my colors, how I blend my colors, and I'm going to be showing you on a few different hairstyles. And I've saved this one. You can see it's only half inked because one of my things that I've been experimenting with lately is coloring the hair first and then inking it after. So I'm going to experiment with this towards the end of the video, but I thought we would just start here and then kind of work our way clockwise. So this first example here, I'm going to make this character blonde, and I have a couple of my favorite markers picked out here that I like to use for coloring blonde hair. Obviously these colors would vary if you want to change up the tone a little bit, or if you're working with a sort of dynamic lighting source, but I'm really just going to be kind of showing you basic techniques, so I'm not really going to be accounting for lighting. I'm going to approach this as if all of my light source is kind of coming like directly from this side, so keep that in mind as well. But I'm going to start with my lightest color first, and this is YR30 Macadamia Nut. And basically this is the color that I use to kind of map out my shadow and my light source, as well as just kind of get an overall base down. You can see that I'm working with very quick brush-like strokes, which is why I'm actually using the brush nib as well. I tend to stick to only the brush nib, not only when I'm coloring hair, but when I'm coloring the majority of my pieces. And you can see pretty much the idea when you're coloring hair is to follow kind of the shape that you've already identified. So you can see I have sort of the part here, so this is where I'm applying most of my color, and then just lightly feathering it outwards. And then down here, just behind the ear, because I figure there's going to be a little bit more depth there, I am placing some more color there as well. Now this bump here, I figure some of the light's going to be catching there, so I'm going to kind of create a highlight there. The main way that you create a highlight is by creating depth on either side. So you can see I am creating a little bit of depth here and a little bit of depth up here, so that this top part right here looks lighter. And I'm going to be doing that down here on this curve as well. And you can see that this character's hairstyle is relatively straight. It still has a little bit of body to it, but it's not too wavy like this one down here. So mapping out the lighting and shadows on a hairstyle like this is relatively easy, and I would recommend it for beginners that are kind of just starting to experiment with coloring hair. And again, just down here at the bottom, I want to create a little bit of a highlight, and that will become more clear as we go on. But I'm just going to finish applying the base, so I'm going to speed this part up. Okay, so now I'm going to be moving on to like my second lightest color, and this is Y21. This is sort of our mid-tone shade. This is going to add a little bit more color to the hair, but it's not really going to be used as a shadow. So again, I'm kind of just further mapping out where the light is hitting the hair and just adding more color to it overall. So, and because we have that base down already, this color should blend fairly easily, but again, we want to use very light feathery strokes. And basically these strokes are what sort of create the actual texture of the hair while also helping it blend. So again, coming up from the bottom and just feathering upwards towards our light source. So you can see we're going to have a little bit of light hitting here and a little bit of it catching here on the side. The reason it's not really catching right here is because it's kind of tucked behind our ear and out of the way of the direct light. And one of the things about hair is that unlike other parts of the face or of the figure, you don't really have to worry about it being perfectly blended. In fact, a little bit of texture can actually serve you well just as long as it's flowing in the right direction. So I'm not working horizontally to create these lines. I am following the lines that I already established in my line art, which give the hair the illusion of having body and having shape. So you can see I'm kind of working down from the part here and then following the direction of my lines as they shift and as they change. Again, I'm just going to wrap up using this shade, and I'll just speed this up before we move on to the next part. Okay, now I'm gonna go in with E43, and this is still a relatively light color, but it has a cooler undertone, so I like to use this to shade especially blonde hair, but it also makes a good base for cool tone brunettes as well, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But with this shade, I'm actually really going to be thinking about where the shadows are falling in the hair and really kind of trying to add more dimension. So one of the darkest parts on the hair is going to be right up near the part, because that is kind of where the hair is lifting out of kind of this crevice that is the part and lifting upwards. So the hairs, or the roots of the hair, tend to be a little bit darker, not only because that's the way that the hair grows, but also because it's usually a little bit more in shadow. So you can see just very lightly adding in this tone. And if it's not perfectly blended right now, that's okay. We can go back in with our previous color or our base color and blend that out later. So I'm gonna add a little bit up here as well, not taking it too far beyond the corner of the ear, and using it much more sparingly than the previous two shades, especially on the side with our light source. I'm also going to shade where the hair is sort of falling behind the ear as well, and back here where I've sort of created the illusion of the hair swooping and sort of curving under a little bit, because that is obviously going to be out of the way of the light source as well. So again, I'm just going to do the same thing on this other side, and rather than speeding this up, I'm going to talk through this part as well, because this is the part of the hair that is sort of the under layer, I suppose. Like, so you can see I've sort of created this illusion of like the top layer of the hair and then the bottom layer of the hair, and this color here is really kind of what helps the eye to pick up on that and really kind of understand how the hair is falling on the face. And again, up here by the roots, and because this is the side that's away from our light source, this side will obviously have a little bit more of our shadow shade. Now we have one final darker color. This is optional, but particularly for this side of the figure, I'm going to just kind of intensify these shadows a little bit, because we don't want it to look too flat. So the areas that are completely in shadow or facing away from the light source should have a deeper shadow than just the overall shadow that we used previously. Hopefully that's making sense. And you'll notice that all of these colors are relatively within the same color family. You can see that you can find colors that have a lot of dimension within the same color family, and you don't really have to think too hard about where to pull your colors from, unless you're working with like a dynamic setting or light source that might alter that a little bit. But that pretty much completes it for our first one. I'm going to be speeding up these other two just so for the sake of time, so the video is not too long, but I'm going to be showing you a few different hair colors as well, so if there's anything worth mentioning, I will mention it in a voiceover. So really the only two notable things about this character is that one, his hair color is red, and two, his hair is shorter. And the things you really need to remember about coloring shorter hair is that it is weighted differently. So when you're drawing it, the way and the direction and the way that the hair is moving is a little bit different, because it's not being weighed down quite the same way that long hair is. So you can see it kind of protrudes outward in every direction rather than kind of just in a downward motion, although that is sort of the overall direction that it is going. It sort of spreads out and then down rather than more just in a direct downward motion. Also, the red hair, I'm using kind of a lot of really, really warm earth tones, kind of brick auburn colors as opposed to like actual cherry red. I think you guys know that, obviously. And that's pretty much it for this one. I sort of kept the highlights a little bit more minimal to keep it looking a little bit more masculine. Now the reason that this one is different is actually for several reasons. Now, number one, you can see that it is an updo or a hairstyle, meaning that the hair is being pulled in ways that are different than the previous ones. And number two, I actually colored in the entire hair area with the base color, and I kind of just wanted to show you this technique as well for those of you who didn't want to leave white highlights. This would be an alternative for you. And you can actually see that throughout the process of me coloring this piece, the hair color actually shows up a lot darker than I had initially made it, and that was because I wasn't sure how dark I wanted to go. So as I build my shadows, I sort of add more and more shadows to create the overall hair color that I want. And that's one of the reasons that I do work lightest to darkest. But pretty much when you're coloring a hairstyle, it's very much the same as coloring any other forms of hair. You just have to be thinking about the shape and the light source and how those shapes are sort of interacting with one another, and you'll be fine. It's fairly straightforward. But I did kind of want to show you this look. And at the very end, I go over the entire piece with my lightest base color, and that gives it a very smooth look, and I actually like that a lot. It's one of my favorite ways to color hair, probably second to the last one I'm going to be showing you in this video. Okay, now we're on to our final character here, and these are the kinds of hairstyles that I like to take the most time with, so I thought I would switch back to me actually talking you through it. Again, I am starting with my lightest color. This is going to be sort of a medium warm brown hair color, so I'm starting with E31. I guess it's not too warm of a brown, but as I get into the darker colors, they do get a little warmer. The E37 family is kind of a nice chestnutty family, if you will. So again, basically when you're doing wavy hair, which is my favorite kind of hair to do, you're really just having to pay a little bit more attention to your light source so that the waves look like they really are kind of extending out and back in. So you really kind of accentuate that curvature here. And again, really, if you establish your line art to be really strong and you have a clear idea of where the direction of your hair is going, then this really shouldn't be too much of a problem for you. And again, it kind of just comes with practice, so maybe this is something that you guys would try out in your sketchbook, you know, trying out drawing different characters and coloring their hair. That's actually probably a really good way to practice. So you can see anytime that it kind of curves in, I am using that as an opportunity to create a shadow. And then anywhere that I feel like it's starting to curve out is where I'm building up my highlight. So that's just kind of a general rule of thumb, because normally if the hair is curving in, there's going to be a shadow casting on it from this part that's curving out. So generally that part is in shadow. And then I'm also going to be showing you how I approach this with no line art at all, just a loose sketch. And it's very much the same concept. It's not like you guys really have to put that much extra thought into it. In fact, sometimes I like it because I don't have to worry too much about where my lines are. You can see in this example up here, I did kind of go out of the lines a little bit, and with this one, I won't really have that problem. You just have to be a little bit more careful to not go too far from your original sketch. You do kind of want to stay with the general idea that you started with. And because this is a side that again is kind of more in shadow, I'm going to be leaving fewer areas white. fact, really probably only more towards the bottom here. So I'm gonna color in this part completely. And this part as well, and then we'll shade that more with our other colors. So in a sense, on this side, the base color becomes our new highlight color, whereas on this side, we left the white for the highlight. And I like the way that this coloring style works without the lines because it ends up looking a lot softer. If I need to, I feel like I do go in and add a few lines at the end, but I don't really feel like it's necessary. So the only part that's going to be white on this side is this little tail here. Now again, we go in with our second darkest color, this is E33, and we just start building up our shadows again. Really something that you should be kind of familiar with at this point. I feel like definitely working with hair, it's a slow process, it's a slow build, and it's just kind of more foolproof to work lightest to darkest, and you can really just get the tone and the texture that you're looking for. And this chunk of hair here, I feel like is kind of in shadow, so I'm just gonna kind of block this in so that I don't mistake that for being sort of a highlighted area, because I want this chunk right here to be highlighted. And you can see I am overlapping the base color quite a bit. Really, the base color serves more as a way to help the other colors blend and kind of fade into the other colors more smoothly. So you don't really have to use a base color if you don't feel like, or you can start your base color quite a bit darker if you don't feel like you need the help blending. I just always find working with a light color to start with to be very helpful, especially when establishing the light source. And then again, it's just the same thing on the other side. You're just paying a little bit more attention to the different pieces because you don't really have a clear idea of where you're placing those. Although I kind of think that that's fun because you can kind of make it up as you go along. And personally, that's my favorite part. Like I can create this little piece that kind of goes astray and this piece that goes on top, you know, just that kind of stuff. I enjoy that quite a bit because it never turns out quite exactly how you plan. Sometimes it turns out a lot better. You can see this part here looks kind of empty, so I am just going to kind of color block that in as well, and then we can shade that. So it kind of automatically gives the illusion of the other pieces being more forward and that piece being more back. And then obviously kind of right around the face, I kind of assume that the face is casting a little bit of a shadow, so these are going to be a little bit darker. Alright, so now we're going to go in a little bit darker even, and because this hair color is so warm, I'm not worried too much about getting a cool shadow in here because the colors just get gradually darker and it's going to create that look of depth even if it's not a cooler shadow. But feel free to go in with like maybe a warm gray if you are really looking to create a very distinguished shadow rather than just the look of like dimension, but that is totally kind of personal preference there. I'm gonna color block this in darker and I'm gonna shade that with our very, very darkest shade. And on this side, I am going to try and use this color a little bit more sparingly, just to really kind of break apart some of these pieces here. I think that's pretty good. And then on this side, obviously I'm going to use it a little bit more heavily. So I'm going to start by kind of color blocking that guy in again, and then the part right near the face. And I don't know why, I tend to have a preference towards this style, but for the sake of the video, it is a lot easier to show you guys with the lines because you can really see what I'm doing very clearly. You don't have to be squinting your eyes or messing with the brightness on your screen to see the lines. So that's why I stuck with the lines for the majority of the video, just to go a little easy on you guys. I'm also gonna add in just like a few wispy hairs. I love a few stray hairs. Okay, and now we go in with our very darkest shade. This is E37. You can see that this gradient really built up quite nicely. I might just go in with that first shade again to soften the highlights a little bit. But you can see that this shade is quite a bit darker than E35, so it's easy to really kind of create a lot of depth. Which is why I didn't opt for like a shadow color in this piece. I really only do it for the blondes because blondes are so light that in general they pull a lot cooler. Brunettes most of the time are pretty warm, so you can get away with shading with brown a little bit more. So you can see it's really just about creating the look of texture and dimension. And then on this side, obviously my darkest color is really only going to be in these little nooks and crannies, just to really set them apart from, again, like this top layer of hair. And just in a few distinct places to create that really clear look so that it reads fairly easily. Alright, and then just for a very finishing touch, I'm going to take a Prismacolor Kohl Erase pencil. I'm going to sharpen it so that the tip is really fine. And I'm basically going to show you what the difference looks between lining it with a multi-liner and then lining it with a colored pencil. And lately, I have been sort of having a preference towards the colored pencil look just because it is so much softer, and I think that it really creates a lot more seamless look. But again, it's totally up to you guys. I did just kind of want to show you both. Obviously I am kind of more experienced with the liner version, but this is what I've been doing lately, so I wanted to show you this as well. And this is just basically where I solidify kind of how the shapes are falling and interacting with each other. And so it's a really nice way to just kind of polish your piece off and make it look finished. So yeah, that is pretty much it. This is how I color hair. I hope you guys found it helpful. I hope that if it wasn't helpful, at least it was interesting to you guys. And if you would like to see me go more into detail about any in particular topic pertaining to hair, I know I haven't done a how I draw hair video, but I feel like I don't know if that would really be helpful to you guys. If it is, I can totally do that, and it will sort of be the prequel to this, I suppose. But if you want to see that, definitely give this video a thumbs up or comment down below to let me know. And that is pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you guys Friday with my Artsy Fartsy Friday video for the week. Bye guys!